right, guys, we're live. Good to have everybody on. I'm Steve Richards with the CEO Nation. Excited about getting another Monday call knocked out. All right, today we're going to be talking about your expectations, whether or not they're in alignment, and how those can benefit you and how you can lean into that. I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of us struggle with expectations because we can massively overestimate what we can do in the short run, and we grossly underestimate what we can do kind of in the medium to long run. And so many of us end up being frustrated that we don't feel like we're getting as far as fast as we need to in the short term. And so that causes us to make decisions where we think we got to try something new, or I got to try something else, or I got to push this faster. I'm not going to give this much time. It hurts our patience. Sometimes we get distracted, and it causes things like shiny object syndrome, right? And getting defocused. And then that really hurts our momentum going forward. But then we also don't take time to realize what we've really been able to accomplish. And so slowly over time, at some point we look up without having a lot of, hindsight. We look up and we realize, man, gosh, we've done all this stuff, and it's actually pretty impressive, right? And so after maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we can do some really, really big things. And so we're always focused on the short run. And a lot of times when we get frustrated, we have this goal that's a little too far away because we're overestimating what we can do now. But because we're not hitting it, we're losing momentum by changing our, over and over again, we change our focus, or we dilute our focus, or we get frustrated. Some of us may just give up and quit, right? And then what that does is it hurts our long-term goal. And realistically, if we knew that, gosh, in 5 years from now, instead of doing this, we could actually do this. And if we knew the relationship that, instead of saying in a year, I'm going to do this, in a year, I just need to do this. And in 5 years, I can do this, and be very realistic about it, we would actually have a completely different mindset. And so we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give you guys 2 or 3 ways to work on your expectations and understand if they're in alignment. And as always, with the CEO Nation, we're here to help folks understand how to transform from the entrepreneurial hustle and grind into the business owning CEO type role within our business, so that we can have a business that works for us instead of us working for it. And so one thing that I do want to do, I'm going to put Bobby, if you can drop a link for me in the chat today, guys. If you have questions, just put them in the chat. If you have questions about the topic while I'm going through some training here for the next 15, 20, probably 30 minutes max, go ahead and pop those in there. But also get ready for some bigger Q&A at the end. If you guys have questions on anything in your business that you want to talk about, I'll make sure we have time for Q&A, and you can just put them in the chat at the bottom. But right now, I want you guys to all grab this link. Excuse me. Even if you're feeling like maybe you don't need it right now, if you guys haven't, I know some of you guys, I see several new faces here, but if you guys haven't already gone to this link and checked things out, it's theceonation.com/links, LINKS, theceonation.com/links. You guys can find our podcast there. You guys can, if you're on Facebook watching this and you go to that link, you can register to be live on this call I'm doing right now every Monday at 3:30 Eastern, so that you can interact live with me. We've got connections. If you're not in the Facebook group, there's connections to the Facebook group there. Probably one of the most powerful things there is our KPI guide, so that you can learn how to turn your business into a math equation, which makes it a lot easier for you guys to be successful in business and to understand what numbers count. By the way, along those lines, I think last week was when we did the KPI talk. We talked about what numbers matter. I got a lot of great feedback on that. And so if you guys didn't catch that one, you can see the replay in the Facebook group, the CEO Nation. But anyway, that link has everything all the way down to set up a strategy call if you want to talk to us about coaching, training, getting connected at a more personal level with us, and everything in between. So utilize that link, grab it, save it, share it with people. That's enough housekeeping. So let's get back. And by the way, before I get back to the topic here, remember, guys, feel free to hit me up with any questions along the way. I want this to be interactive. And I apologize in this. I don't know how many months I can keep talking about our quote new office. I don't know when it stops being new, but I don't have the lighting and everything set up. I still have my other office, and this light right here is bothering me. I don't know if it's bothering you guys where it keeps popping out over my head. It's like a halo. I look very angelic, but also I know it's getting kind of dark in here, so I apologize for the lighting. But I'll tell you guys, let's get back into this topic. So expectation wise, I want to be really clear. We did a training on this a while back, and expectations fit into a continuum of thinking. And so if you guys are taking notes, I want you guys to write this down and spend a little time contemplating this. So write down HABE, HABE, these HABEs, HABE. And so I want to talk to you about expectations today, but first I want to kind of give the grander scale of where my thinking comes from this. And so expectations, E, is at the end of this HABE acronym that I like. And so the acronym goes like this. H is habits. And so if you're writing this down, for A, write attitudes. And for the B, write beliefs. And then E is expectations. And so these are in a very specific order. Our habits drive our attitudes, and our attitudes drive our beliefs, and our beliefs drive our expectations. And so what I was talking about a minute ago when I first opened this up, and I said, remember, our expectations are such that many times our expectations are way too high for the short term, like 3, 6, 12 months. And we think we can get so much done, and we overload our plate, and we're overzealous on our planning and our goal setting. And we set 4,000 goals when really we should have set 2 or 3 that are more achievable, realistic, stretch goals, but realistic. But what we don't understand is if we can modify our thinking in the short term, be more patient, more thorough, be more productive, more successful. Many of us set our sights too low in the long run, 5 to 10 years out. We can do much, much bigger things. But one of the reasons that happens is because our belief system is such that we're thinking from where we're currently at in life. Like we don't know what we don't know. We haven't seen what we haven't seen. We may not think that we could play at some $100 million company level. And the reality is we can't right now. But when we try to, think forward, our expectations are such that it seems natural to think, oh, maybe I can do 100,000 and then 500 and then get to 1 million and then do a couple million. And then somehow in your head, you're thinking, if I could do 2 to 5 million in 5 years from now. And then the reality is maybe you need to focus on just doing that 500,000 in that first year instead of thinking you're going to do it in 6 to 12 months. Maybe it's by the end of the first year, maybe you're tracking at the 40 whatever thousand a month that you need to be at a $500,000 level, not having generated $500,000, but be tracking for that, averaging that, right? And then in year 2, maybe that incrementally goes from 40 something to 50 something. And maybe by year 3, you're only at the 60, 80 mark. It might feel like this is a really slow growth, but 3 years in, you're tracking towards $1 million. And there can be this very impactful parabola type curve that can occur to where that could jump by year 4, it could jump to 5 million. And by year 10, or by year 5, I'm sorry, maybe you're at 10 million. Because of the way the foundation was built, your patience was built, and the way that you planned. And so when you limit yourself thinking now, a lot of times we shoot our long-term goals too low. In 5 years, I'm trying to look how old people on this call are. I'm not going to call too many of you guys out. I do have a couple people my senior on here, but at 46, I feel like I'm definitely older than most of you guys. And so 5 years feels like a long time, but the reality is what I'm talking about today more applies to like where you can be in 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, any of us could be running $100 million company or $500,000 company. I'm sorry, $500 million company, right? In that type of time frame. It just depends on what you want. But just a quick side note, I would challenge most of you guys. That's not what probably almost any of you guys would really want. That would come with tremendous amount of sacrifice, a tremendous amount of corporate structure, a tremendous amount of, working hours in the business and making decisions about growing a business and scaling it instead of your lifestyle. I would argue that most of the people on here would be happy with being somewhere between 500,000 and 5 million of revenue, and just holding your profit margins tight. So, getting in that 1 or 2 million range is, puts you in the small minority of companies. Many companies don't make it to the 7-figure range. It's very, very tough. And it's a small percentage of all businesses that do. And then out of that, it's even a smaller percentage. We're talking fractions of percents that make it to a 10 million mark. So landing in that 1 to 10 million range already puts you in the single digits, of entrepreneurs in the world. And so, I would be really careful about what you really want to build. So today's exercise isn't to get you guys like excited about, oh, I guess Steve said I should do $100 million company and my sights are too low. That's not what I'm saying. What I really want you guys to focus on is what your business is giving you, what you want for your life, how much free time you have, how much income you have, what influence you have, what type of work you do, what kind of value do you provide, how many people are you impacting. I wouldn't be focused on the money. You guys have heard me say this a lot. Money's not the thing. Money's never the real problem. Money's never the real answer. And money's never the thing you're after. Those are the 3 things that I know for sure about money. I'm going to say it again. I wasn't going to cover that today, but since I did, you guys need to write that down. If you haven't heard that yet, these are 3 things that I've learned the good way and the hard way about money. It's never the problem, the real problem. It's never the real answer. And it's never the thing that you're really after. Money represents a lot of things along the way. Money could be the symptom of a problem. Money could be part of an answer to a problem. Money could be part of what you want. It could help feed what you're actually trying to do with your life. But it's never going to be those things. And so with that being said, what I'm talking about with expectations today is really understanding where I can be, where do I expect to be in 3 to 6 months from now? Where do I expect to be in 12 months from now? And where do I expect to be in 3 to 5 years from now? And a lot of that is driven going backwards in that HABE. Go back to the acronym I told you guys to write down. Going backwards, E is at the end. We're talking about the very last thing today. Right before that is B, it's beliefs. Now your beliefs come from many different things. And in fact, in the beginning, your beliefs come from nurture nature. It's in your nature, and it's also nurtured into you from your parents and the people you grew up with, where you went to school, how you've lived, and it is to some extent still who the people you choose to hang around with, right? You guys have heard your network is your net worth. Well, that's part of this nurturing about your belief structure. And so when you hang around people that are doing things that other people wouldn't believe are possible, your beliefs begin to change, and then your expectations will change. So what drives your beliefs? There's all, like I said, nurture and nature does, but in general, attitudes. And so this has been an interesting nuance for me to uncover over the years, because attitudes, as you guys have heard people say, you can't always control what happens to you, but you control your attitude. You can control what you do about it, right? What you're exposed to with the people that you spend time with and the things you choose to read and fill your head with will start to drive your attitude. And your attitude, if you want to think of it, there's another way to think of that is your perspective on things. Like, what is your attitude towards this? Think about that, right? When someone says, what's your attitude towards this? Or what's your philosophy on this? What's your thinking on this? And so those are skewed. Those are filters that we choose to see things with and understand things with in life. And so our attitudes a lot of times are just driven around the people that we've learned from, right? And the people that we've been around who have set examples for us. And so in the HABE acronym here, one thing that can drive your attitudes, that can control it, is your habits. And a lot of times, kind of along the same lines of all these things I'm telling you today, your habits are genuinely and generally both, genuinely and generally learned. Those kinds of things are typically learned behavior in the beginning, or our habits have come out of behaviors that we've used that serve us in some respect. They produce something for us, or they alleviate something for us. But our habits are behaviors that serve us, and they've gotten to the point where they're ingrained in our subconscious enough that we don't require a lot of active thinking. So like literally, you guys know that when you drive to work sometimes, if you have the same path you drive every day, and then someday you tell someone, hey, I'll meet you at a coffee shop. And I bet you guys have done this where you look up and you missed a turn to the coffee shop because you just out of habit in the morning were driving to the office, right? Well, once you learn how to chew gum really well, it didn't require anything special for you to chew and not swallow the gum while you're talking on the phone. You're also capable of probably brushing your teeth in the morning out of habit. When you get ready, there's a lot of things in the morning that happen out of habit. You might even start a pot of coffee in the morning out of habit. It's not that it takes no active thinking, but a habit is something that you've ingrained to the point where it's more natural for you to progress through these activities given a certain situation. And so think about this. If our habits, which are basically our actions, right, the ones that we do almost subconsciously, not totally, what we've learned is when we do these habits, certain things typically happen. We start to have an attitude about a filter, a perception about what's going to happen, right? That drives our belief systems. What we believe to be true is certain things in life. And then our expectations are, look, I believe this, so I expect it to happen. We can circumvent this thing and kind of short circuit it by starting with our habits. And I know I'm going deep into all these things to write down today, but there's a concept I'm going to just touch on, and it's been made popular by several personal development people over the years, but it's this concept called be, do, have. And so many times our habits don't serve us very well, right? With our health, or maybe an addiction, or not being productive at work, or our relationships, how we handle our relationships. Well, this concept of be, do, have, it's interesting because many people they want to have the things like a good relationship. They want to have a nice car. They want to have a good job. They want to have a high income. They want to have the house that they think their family deserves. They want to have the kids that, their marriage, should produce. They feel like they want to have this stuff. And then once they have the stuff, they'll do the things that people with those things do, right? When you have the house, the car, the job, the wife, the husband, the kids, you'll do things with the stuff you have. And then because you're doing those things, you become that person, that type of person that has that kind of job, that kind of money, that kind of house, that kind of relationship, right? That kind of family. And so many, many people, our brains work this way that we think I got to have the stuff, which is why a lot of people wind up in debt and finance a lot of things and do things maybe they do it the wrong way or don't understand what they're getting into, but they want to have the stuff so they can do the things that they think that they should be doing so they can be the person that they want to be. And when in reality, the trick to this, which is if you guys have been through therapy, counseling, I'm a big advocate for all that. You learn that a lot of times our brains work exactly opposite of what we need to do. This needs to be flipped. You need to be the person first. You need to be the person that runs $1 million business. You need to be the person that's healthy. You need to be the person that has a good marriage, right? What would that person do? I need to understand what they would do, and I need to be that person and do the things they would do. So I'm being that person. I'm doing the things they would do, and then I get to have the stuff. It works out much easier this way. The other way is uphill. And it's more about thinking that if you short circuit your way to having the things, a lot of times you miss the journey. It's all the things you have to figure out and learn along the way are the actual real benefits. Having the stuff and doing the things isn't really what matters. It's what it took you to get there when you're becoming that person, right? So when I be that person and then I figure out how to do those things, I'll eventually get to have the stuff if I want it. But a lot of times you might find out you don't really want all the stuff because the real victory is becoming the person, which is all any of us want anyway. we think the stuff allows us to do the things, and then we become the person. But when you find out you can become the person by doing the things, you don't even need the stuff. That's just there. You might want different stuff. And so back to this habit, attitude, belief, expectation continuum I'm talking about. When you understand the be, do, have thing I just explained, guys, I know this is kind of hard on here, but stick with me if you're writing, taking notes, hopefully. My habits are the things I do. So if I can get really clear about the person I want to be and what my goals are, I can create the habits that I need to successfully master, the actions I need to implement, so that I can, once I start to do things I've never done, I start to have a different attitude. And I realize, oh, I can do this. I can generate more regular, consistent revenue. I can hire a team that does things without me. Oh, I can actually have revenue being produced while I'm not at the office, or I can generate marketing that actually produces good results. So my attitude begins to change. And once my attitude is enlightened, my belief system is disrupted. And now once my belief system can elevate, I start to have different expectations, and that raises the bar for everything. Then I can go back and I can start to hack into my habits again and affect my attitudes and change my beliefs and my expectations. And I can level my game up. And so every time that you have the courage to commit to these habits and the commitment to do the things that you have to do, you'll start to change your attitudes and beliefs. And then that's when you become that other person. You become the different kind of business. You become the different CEO in the business. And so tying this back to the concept for today, many times our expectations are, I want to be there so fast. I expect my growth to be straight up. And a lot of times growth is like this. It's up and down, it's up and down, it's up and down. And actually in the down times is when we learn the most, by the way. Most of the peak times are because of what we learned in the valleys. And so we got to learn to ride that wave, and then we can take some of it out, but the wave never stops. It's just, you want the lows to be a little less low and you want the highs to be a little more high, right? And so over time, you're still heading genuinely up, and you can take a little bit of the ebb and flows out, is nice. But entrepreneurialism is just a roller coaster, and it's not about figuring out how to get off the roller coaster. It's figuring out how to enjoy it, right? Instead of being scared on it and not knowing what's going to happen, it's understanding that when you go up, you'll probably come down, but then you can go back up, right? And knowing the ride has certain twists and turns and being ready for them. Just think about a roller coaster. When you know it's ready to come, if you're going to turn one way and you kind of lean into it, that makes it easier than if you're leaning away from it. Centrifugal force kind of pushes you, right? Or you might get banged around because you're not really ready for what's going to happen. So it's different the second time you ride a ride. And that's what happens in entrepreneurialism, is that when you realize the ebbs and flows and twists and turns, you can lean into them more and you're more prepared for them and you understand them a little better and you can learn the lessons from it. And so I see a lot of folks who, again, just expect to do things quick. They're used to winning. A lot of us have been successful in our lives. We've done a lot of good things. Usually we've had good corporate careers or good athletic careers, and or we've been successful at other jobs or other businesses, and we just assume things are going to go really well. And we assume they're going to go well and stay well when they do. We don't assume the drops. And that's tough. And so that's when we get frustrated with these short-term expectations, which was today's topic, was that it's frustrating in the short term to think, hey, gosh, I thought I would be further than I am now, and I'm frustrated, and I start to make big changes in the business, or I start to lose my momentum, my inspiration, or my interest level in things. And that all plays into this idea that I said at the beginning of this call of it skews your thinking for 5, 10, 15 years down the road, which is, part of what really matters is kind of where you're headed. Now, I'm a big proponent of now, like enjoying this process now and benefiting now. I'm not a big, let's sacrifice for 5 years so I can have something great in 10 years from now. I actually believe, done right, you can enjoy this process. You can have quick enough success that you can have good income. You can let go of the day-to-day actions. Like, those things can happen in months, not years. and you can have steady growth. It will have ups and downs, right? And then so once you realize how to control your destiny, you can start to look out and say, man, what could I do in 5 to 10 years from now? Right? And start to think of bigger possibilities. Now, I don't want to go too deep into that side of it. You guys know my philosophy if you follow me at all. But the reality is, where you want to be in 5 or 10 years shouldn't be about how fast and big I can grow my company. It should be about, what do I want in my life? Like, what do I 110% want to have in my life? What free time do I want? What influence do I want? What money do I need to do those, live that life? And then I'm reverse engineering backwards through my business. I find it very hard to plan business more than 12 months out. We do it all the time. And I've been in the 23 years now I've been in business. I find it really hard to get excited about a 3 to 5 to 10 year goal. I like aiming those directions. But the reality is, I need to generally know where I'm headed in life. And then I like to focus back on the current 12 months from a medium granularity perspective. Like, genuinely, I want real goals, like in 12 months, how much revenue we're going to generate, how much time do I want to work, what's my profitability, what's my income, what's my impact from my business. Those are like medium, not super granular. But then in 90 days, that's where I'm going to be like, this is how many leads I'm generating. This is how many sales calls we're making. This is how many offers or pitches or whatever you want to call it in your sales process. And this is how many units we're selling. And this is how many dollars of profit we're going to make. And that's when we get really, really granular with our numbers inside of 90-day windows. And these are like little sprints in our business. And so for us, our expectations are usually such that we're planning to wind up at a certain place at the end of 12 months. And we're generally heading towards that trajectory, but then we're constantly looking at 90-day chunks these are races that we're running, and we're really getting focused on the details, like at the smaller scale. So we talked about a lot today. I'm going to get into open Q&A for you guys for a little bit. If anybody has anything they want to cover, I'm here to cover anything you guys need in your business. I got, another 30 minutes or so, but I want to make sure that you guys took a couple things away from this. The be, do, have concept, that you become the person who does the things, who has the things. Be, do, have. Your brain, if you don't create a mechanism for you to go through that process that I just said, will inherently and naturally, your human brain will go to, I want to have the stuff. I want to have the business. I want to have the deals. I want to have the revenue. I want to have the team. I want to have the free time. I want to have everything so that I can do all these things that I really want to do. And then I'll be that person. We'll focus in the short term on being that person. What would they do? How would they act? What would their decision-making process look like? And how would it differ from what the decisions you're currently making? And start to do those things. And then again, you may find that you don't want to have the stuff you thought you did, but then at least you'll have the option, because taking the action up front and pushing through on creating new habits will start to give you a different attitude about business. And this is that HABE thing I asked you to write down too, is that my habits drive my attitudes, and my attitudes drive my beliefs, and my beliefs drive my expectations. And if all you do is live with your current beliefs and your bad habits or okay habits pushing you to having these current beliefs, your expectations will not change. And that will cause you, again, left unchecked, your brain is going to shoot too high in the 6 to 12 month time frame, where you will probably be frustrated if you're a newer entrepreneur. And it will probably lean you to shooting too low in the 5 to 10 year time frame. So I want you guys to take that away from this. If you guys have questions, dive in on the chat. Just hit the chat, put it in. If you guys want to change the subject now, that's cool. I'm open for anything: partnerships, hiring, marketing, sales, like whatever. But if anybody's got some things we can cover, I could start calling people out, but you guys will probably get mad at me and or ignore me. And I'll always, like I like to say, if all of your guys' businesses are perfect, instead of listening to this, you should be teaching it with me. And so let me know so that I can get you booked to be on here with me, and we can run the webinar that says how to run a perfect business. And then you can just explain how you run your business. So let's break some problems down, or questions or opportunities you guys want to dig into. If you guys have anything you want to put out that you're not too scared to offer publicly, just remember this: most things you're probably going through are pretty similar to what other people are going through. And one of the reasons I try to make myself available, I don't have time to get my brain picked by everybody. It just wouldn't be fair, because I run in such bigger circles now with our trainings and our events and our masterminds and our different businesses. I really like to dig in and help, and I don't get that opportunity very often anymore in a small, intimate setting. And so that's why I keep everybody off screen. Every once in a while, I pull one person on, or sometimes we have one person that's being interviewed on here. But I like to focus, and I know that when we talk through your questions or problems, it helps other people. So if you got something going on, let me know. I'll tell you guys this while you guys are thinking about that. If you want to ask any questions, one major thing going on right now, I don't know if you guys saw, I'm not a political governmental guy, but it is interesting that the government basically admitted the dilemma they're in with jobs being created right now. And I know Biden put a release out, and they drastically overestimated the amount of jobs they were going to create. And I'm seeing this with our Team Architects company, that I see several of you guys on here that are clients. You guys know what I'm talking about. For those of you that don't, one of the companies that I co-own with Kent Clothier helps people build teams. And a lot of what that is custom assessments, where we build a custom assessment to assess all the candidates so that you can kind of laser in and figure out who's got the right brain chemistry to be on your team. Now, look, it's only one part of building a team. There's managing, inspiring, compensating, training, onboarding, and then picking the candidates, like one of six things. But it's one thing that most of entrepreneurs are really terrible at, is dealing with the brain damage of like resumes and who to interview and how to interview and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you one thing that's been really interesting is, across the board, nearly every single one of our clients in all different corners of the country are struggling to get good candidates right now. And when they get candidates, they're having trouble getting a hold of them. They're having folks that are, standing them up on interviews. It's kind of crazy. And I have several coaching students right now, who especially have labor industry like construction or restaurants or different things like that are struggling to hire. They can't even hire enough people. Like, they can get back to work more fully now than they were, but they can't even hire enough people because just of the dynamic of the stimulus packages and the extra unemployment pay. And I don't know if everybody's trying to hire at the same time right now, but I'll tell you, it is extremely hard to hire. And you've got to be, if you have got to be on top of your ads. You've got to make sure your ads are written correctly. They're posted in the right places. There's spend you can put on your ads. There's also SEO. Make sure that you're using the right keywords in your ad. So if people are searching the job boards, they're finding you. And when you do get a candidate, I used to say, hey, let them pile up and then just give them our assessment. And then whoever doesn't fill it out, screw them. I don't want somebody working for me that can't follow directions and fill out an assessment. I don't feel that way anymore. Currently in this market, we're watching every resume that comes in for every position that we have out. And when we like the resume, we are picking the phone up and calling that person. And I'm doing it as the CEO of these different companies, because having an administrative person talk to someone is just not the same as the CEO picking the phone up and saying, hey, look, I saw your resume and I like it. Do you have 5 minutes to talk? Now, I'm not saying you interview people blindly, but you need to get them on the phone and get them excited and get them sold on the concept of like, look, we've got something cool going on here and you might be a good fit. Do you remember this job, the exact posting? And ask them a couple questions about it, make sure they know what you're talking about, and see if they're really motivated. And by the way, during this 5 or 10 minute conversation, you can greatly tell if you like the person or not. It's pretty obvious, right? Make sure you're not talking the whole time. Ask a couple questions about what kind of time frame they're looking to get a new job, why they're looking for a new job. Just a couple real basics. Just 2 minutes of back and forth, just to get a feel for them on the phone, and then let them know, hey, listen, I'm going to send you a link. This is really important. It's really to protect your time. It protects my time. It's a custom assessment for this specific job. Look, it's really exciting. It'll let both of us know if this is a good fit for us and if we should go into the interviewing process before we spend any time, spending hours together in interviews and even consider this. I want you to take this assessment and be great, right? And you got to sell that thing, and you got to get a hold of people, and you got to do it quick. When they apply, you need to hit them while the iron's hot, and make sure, again, your job ad is on point, and make sure that you're marketing that correctly and posting it in different places. It is brutal to hire right now. And if you're not finding that, like it's easy for you, again, I want to book you to come on and talk about what you're doing and why things are so great. I am excited about this because I do know there's several Team Architect clients on here. We are getting ready to launch. We're getting ready to overhaul all that stuff with that company. And we're going to start a weekly webinar like this that's all based around hiring and building a team. And so compensation and training and job ads and how to use the assessments. Excuse me. Been talking a lot today. We get so many questions from our clients, especially like, hey, I got a good candidate. How should I train them? How should I onboard them? Hey, they're not quite a fit, or they don't like the compensation plan. They're in sales. Should I pay them a base plus commission or commission only? And how do I work this out? And there's so many questions, like relentlessly on a weekly basis. We have so many people coming to us. We're going to start answering those on the similar format. We'll have the replays all in a Facebook group, and we'll have weeklies. And I think that's going to start probably not this week, but next week. So be on the lookout for that if you're a Team Architects client. Let's see if I'm getting any questions here. Marvin, what's up, brother? One of my boys, Marvin, here said, yeah, LOL, correct. Lost my first sales guy in a week. Well, I'll tell you, Marvin, I can almost guarantee there's probably something you could have saw coming. And there's also a very important, at least one learning lesson in what happened, right? So I have absolutely been there and done that. I think my record's 9 days. And that's just because we waited over the weekend to fire the person. But yeah, that's painful. When you find people now, you want to make sure they're right. So when they come on, they stay. Let me see. All right, cool. So Matt said, what happens when I have expectations based on certain performance, but then we don't hit those numbers any longer? How do I think you meant, how do I modify my expectations accordingly? Yeah. So Matt, that's an interesting question, because it happens to a lot of us. So many of us have some level of success in our business, and then we kind of think we've arrived, right? We're like, oh, I'm doing 50,000 or 5,000 a month. So now I'm going to make 60 grand this year, or I'm doing 50,000. I'm going to make 600 grand, or I'm doing 83,000. I'm going to do $1 million this year a month. We equate these like milestones, and somehow in our head, we average them out, and we think that we're operating at a certain level. Well, we've got to look at trends, and our expectations can't be based on small snapshots. Especially, Matt, if you're filtering your snapshots optimistically. Man, this light, guys, I'm so sorry. It is literally driving me freaking nuts. This one that's like floating in the back of my head back here. There, that's a little better. So anyway, so back to your question, Matt. If you're filtering your snapshot where you're like, oh, I like this little piece of what I do, and I'm going to go ahead and ignore this one and ignore this one. And so when I look at my business like this, things look really good. And that's what I'm going to focus on. Well, the reality is I've got to look at the big picture, number one. So I can't filter what I'm studying. And the other thing is I can't look at one snapshot in time. I've got to take regular snapshots over time and be realistic about the trend. And so especially if it has to do with revenue, or like units of sales production, that kind of thing, you need to always be looking at like really a 6-month trend. Because sometimes a quarter can be really great or really bad, but 6 months, like a year is so long that it's once you're rolling, you can always look back a year, but there's also seasonality adjustments. There are like, some kinds of natural ups and downs, and there's some growth periods and some things that skew by the year. We've just found that 6 months is a good time frame. And what I would typically do is look back 6 months and then take averages for production and revenue and expenses and employee output and things like that over that time frame, no matter what time of year it is, and then compare that to the prior 6 months before that, and potentially compare it to the same 6 months from the year before. I know that's super deep. I probably just, not that it went over some of your guys' heads, but some of you guys are like, geez, man, I'm trying not to cuss on these. I about did. So it's like, gosh, I can't even track a few numbers, let alone this month, this period last year versus now, and all the, just, it's baby steps, guys. And all I'm telling you is start tracking early and often, and track more than you need. And then constantly be looking at like estimating what you think this coming month will be, and then track what happens, and then look at the magic happens when you look at the difference. But also keep adding every month on top of each other until you get to that 6 month. And then you can look back and look what happened each month, and then take the average and look at what the average of all that is. And over time, your expectations, to get back to today's topic and what you asked, needs to be based on what is really going on in your business, not a weird snapshot, not a one-off report. What are you really trending towards? Who are you really? What revenue are you really doing? What marketing are you really doing? How many units are you doing? What size is your team? Like if you just hired 2 new people and 2 months later, you're trying to compare that to some crazy goal that you set, you also need to realize that like when you hire new people, there's a ramp up period, right? And you're going to figure out how to adjust when you're creating your trends. But it's okay to say, hey, I had just a couple months with 2 key players, but as I look at the other 4 months before it that didn't have those people, I divide it all out. It takes where you were lower and maybe where you're higher with these new employees, it evens it out, and it gives you a much better even keel look, maybe even a little bit of a conservative look going forward, which is okay. Because if you're trending up like crazy, maybe you're planning a little bit flatter than what's really happening, but that's better than the alternative where a lot of people are going along, they have a big month, and then they just assume they're here, and now their new vantage point is up here, and then they think they're going to do that again. When reality is, when they do this, start here and end up here, the average is in the middle. And by the way, if you guys are listening to this and you're like, this makes no sense, and you haven't done the KPI guide that we have training, which is free, by the way, and it's only 25 minutes. So all of your ADHD brains can get through it. And if you're crappy at taking notes, it literally has notes to download. And it has an action plan on how to move forward, even if you're not tracking any numbers right now. That starts to give you guys a foundation for everything that I've been talking about these last like 5 minutes here with Matt's question. And so Matt, to answer your question again, look at trends over a period of time, adjust your expectations, and don't have a real hot, real great success, and then your expectations are skewed up here. And it sounds like right now you're in one of the valleys. Don't kill yourself either, because maybe you're trending better than you think. And just understand this, our greatest growth occurs in the valleys. And so when things aren't trending the way they used to, let me take trending out. Sorry, I don't want to use that too much. When things aren't currently tracking or executing the way that they were at some period of time, just realize this is an opportunity to make your business better. These valleys in our business happen for us, not to us, to push us in one direction or another. We can either run into them and fix this problem forever and make our business that much better, or we can run away from them and hurt our business, which is when we trick ourselves into a new revenue model, or we quit our business and start a new one altogether, or we fire some people that didn't deserve it and we hire someone else thinking that's the answer, right? So depending on if you run to or from, your perspective on things is what causes you to pick which direction to run. But the reality is, when you're in a valley, you got to start running harder, right? And you got to do that because you got to run up the hill to get back up the hill, to get out of the valley. And it's important that your greatest growth occurs in the valleys. And the successes that we have later on are typically a result from what we learned while we were going through those tougher times. So don't beat yourself up, embrace it, lean into it, and be really clear on why you are where you are and what caused or allowed you to get to where you are, and what are you going to change going forward so this doesn't happen again. Great innovation comes from times like this in your business, Matt. So wish you the best there. Let me see what else I got. Thanks. On point. Good stuff. Yep. Thanks. As always, great. Yep. Cool. All right. Aaron's got, okay. If I've not had much great success, how can I have an expectation of success? Oh, that's a good question, Aaron. So it's kind of like what I was telling you about the beat you have, right? You can't really, in your head, it'd be easy to think I can't expect success because I've never had it. But quite frankly, you can. And that's just like saying I can't have the stuff that I want until I've had it. But I just told you that you can have things once you do things and once you become someone. And so think about that. I know it's deep, but think about that beat you have that I talked about, Aaron, because when you make a commitment to make some changes and you start some different habits in your life, which might be the habit of tracking everything in your business. It might be the habit of who you allow to work in your business. It might be the habit of how you do or don't stick to goals, right? Whatever the habits are, when you change these habits and your attitudes start to change, you can create a belief system that you will be successful without ever having been successful. That is absolutely positive. Don't trick yourselves into thinking, Aaron, that because you've never done it, you can't do it, which is kind of what you're saying. Because if that were true, none of us would ever do anything new that we've never done, right? So just really get clear. This will help you a lot. Really get clear with why you're doing this business and what you want out of it, right? And start to understand what kind of lifestyle you want. And then you have to understand enough about your business to reverse engineer that. Meaning, like, if I want a certain amount of time and money, I at least in the business I at least have to know how many deals I have to do and how much revenue I need to make and how many team members would that take and how much marketing, would it take to get that kind of deal flow or that kind of, lead flow. There's some basic numbers that you might need to hire a coach. You might need to do some training and Aaron, I don't know what business you're in, what industry, but I would tell you, the hack here is if you can find a mastermind that's more on the beginning to intermediate level. I wouldn't go into an advanced one. Or you can find a mentor who's willing to spend time with you. I mean, one of the most crucial things you can do right now is be around somebody who's been where you want to go. It is absolutely empowering to work with someone. Again, whether you're in a group, whether they're a paid coach, whether it's a mentor who lives down the street and they're friends with someone or they're retired and they're friends with your parents or whatever. But finding someone who will pour into you, who's been where you want to head, is by far the most powerful thing that you can do when you're trying to become a better version of yourself. Because not only will they teach you things you don't know, but what I find really, really empowering is for them to affirm the things I think I know, so that I know when I'm on the right track, I can double down. And when I'm faced with a couple of different decisions, I can get advice on the pros and cons. And probably my best coaches in my life don't ever make decisions for me, but they empower me with their process and their information and their connections for what they would do if they were making the same decision as us. And they might share some stories about when they've been faced with that same kind of decision as us in the past, which gives me perspective. But again, what it's really about is being empowered to make a decision between two different alternatives or multiple alternatives, and also to affirm the actions you're currently taking and confirm that some of the things that you're on the right track with are correct. And that's just, again, it's hard, Aaron. You'll pay for a coach, you'll find a mastermind if it's free potentially, but a lot of times you got to pay, or you'll have to just network your way. So go find anyone and everyone that's been in the industry you're in or want to be in, and network like crazy and find out. Maybe, Aaron, even go find someone who does what you want to do if you're not already operating at a certain level, and potentially go work for that person. You might get paid to learn by being a cog in their machine, and time flies, and you might spend it, a year or two working for somebody else, but that would put you light years ahead on the back end. So don't be afraid to do that. All right, let me see what else we got. Thanks. Good stuff. Okay. Thanks, guys, for everyone that's saying good stuff. I appreciate it. Marvin's got one. If you were picking a new market to do virtually, how would you choose it? What would be the criteria? So Marvin's in the real estate game, guys. So not everybody on here, Marvin. I know you don't get on too often, but not everybody's in real estate on here. So you're talking about virtually picking a market to invest in. I would first ask you this: why are you looking to virtually invest, right? And we got like 5 minutes, Marvin, and that's a good question. So I don't want to pull you on and get into a whole discussion here, but I'll just say this. This is the same thing where if somebody's like looking to have a new product or a new service, or open a second location, or move from one area of the country to another, the reality is most times, Marvin, many people are moving from one place to another because they have an issue in their business model. That may not be your case at all. And it may be that you're looking for additional revenue, so you want to pick up a second market. It could be that your market's just not the right kind of deal flow. If that's the case, then I'm all for looking virtually. But the reality is it's a lot easier to do more business in our current market. For the most part, there's some weird exceptions to that, and or fix what we have going on as to learning, as opposed to learning another market. All that being set aside, you have some good resources, right? Through our personal network and Boardroom. There's some virtual wholesaling. Brian Manley be a great resource, by the way, because I know we both know him. But I will tell you this, for me personally, I'm going to be looking at deal flow. So I'm going to want to see which direction the market's heading. I'm going to be looking at days on market, and I'm going to be looking at units, cash units sold. So I'll be studying the data on the real estate sales. And then I'd be looking for population growth. Not always, but typically I'm looking for that. And then it's really simple in my mind. Like, I would just go study all the resources that are out there, that other people who have already figured all this out and spent all this time and money researching markets. I would just go talk to 10 or 15 different people that invest virtually and ask them what they did and why. And I would take notes, and then I would go read, some places online that I think, find something that you like and read about it. What are the top 10 best real estate investing markets? And I would crunch the 2 or 3 interviews I did, or 4 or 5 interviews with virtual wholesalers. And then I would crunch the 2 or 3 articles I read. And I bet what'll happen is you'll see a couple different cities popping up over and over again. Now, another big thing I would potentially do is, if you do in your current market have a buyer who's a really, really great buyer. And I know, sorry guys for that on real estate, this is getting pretty real estate specific, but if you have some good buyers that are already doing business in other markets, you may want to kind of look to going into that same market or that other market they're in, because you already have an established relationship, or potentially you have some like boots on the ground, like, some local people. That would be also important. I think learning the new market is overlooked. I think a lot of guys say, don't worry about that. You can figure that out later. Just get stuff on contract, send it out to your buyers, and let them tell you what's a good deal or not, and you'll learn the market over time. But I would not underestimate the value of you knowing another market, or having someone that you really, really trust that you can work with. It will just make things a lot easier. So that's more about, why are you doing this, right? And where are a lot of transactions happening, and where's the buzz, and I'm just kind of chasing that around. I don't know that I would be studying all the demographic and governmental and, census data and trying to predict the next best market. That's like picking stocks. It's really hard. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but if it's not your thing, it'd probably be easier just to tag team into some of the markets that are, other people are already doing. And I know that you're in a great network that I'm in with Boardroom. I would just hit people up in Boardroom and say, I'm looking to start investing virtually. Who wants to work with me, or what advice do you guys have? I would imagine there's people more into the day-to-day of the business than me that could give you some good advice there. But I will just say this, be really careful again about why you're wanting to do that. It's, the grass is greener where we water it, not in some other market. So hope that helps, Marvin. I know we need to connect on Team Architects, by the way. All right. Anybody got anything else? I got a few more minutes, like another minute or two. All right, cool, guys. I hope today helped. We talked about just expectations, and are your expectations off in your business? Are they too low or too high? Typically in the short term, they're too high, and we're hard on ourselves, and we don't make decisions with enough patience, and with the wrong process in mind. And then on the long term, our expectations are too low, and we don't understand how far we really can get if we build the right foundation. And so in the CEO Nation, we talk about this all the time in the 4 pillars. Many people are trying to hire people before they have their foundation in their business, their revenue model really built well, or they're trying to let go and have a management system in place of a business that doesn't have the right team. And that's just going to be a disaster. These things happen in orchestration with each other. You're going to want, now they overlap for sure. So it isn't like one is perfected and then the next one, but to the extent when you hire people, the quality and breadth of people you can hire for a team is directly related to how defined and mature your business model is, how well you understand what really makes it tick and how to generate leads. And then with your team, your ability to manage that team is greatly dependent on the size of that team and the quality of that team. And so if the foundation is a little shaky and the team is a little shaky, and I got shaky on top of shaky, well, how well does that third tier up when I'm trying to build a management system over that team? How well do you think that's going to work? That's really, really tough. It's a moving target is what it is. And so you think you have good people, and then if it doesn't work, then you're mad at them. And the reality is, could have been that they weren't given the right roles and responsibilities because your business model shifted a little bit, or maybe your compensation plan wasn't set up correctly, or your training wasn't done thoroughly. And those things are more your problem than their problem. It might be manifesting in them having problems in your business, but I have found more times than not, the entrepreneur is at least half, if not most of the problem that you have with certain employees is usually the business. That's for at least anyone doing under $1 million in revenue, where you don't have that level of maturity yet. It's just really common not to have good onboarding and good management systems and good training systems. So remember what I said, guys, about teams. Our Team Architects or different companies that help source people, that's just one component. Finding the right person starts with defining the right role. If the role isn't defined well, which is part of having the business model defined, it's really hard to find the right person because you're, again, a moving target. And then once you hire the right person, though, you got to onboard them, compensate them, train them, inspire them, manage them. And there's a lot to it. And so when you get to the management, operational systems and processes and automation, I think a lot of business owners get lost in what we call pillar 3, but in the operational model and the operational systems and the management of it. They want to automate things that aren't really optimized yet. They want to build systems around things that aren't best practices, right? And they're trying to utilize the wrong kind of employee with the wrong expectations to operate these new systems they're creating. And so again, what I was saying in the 4 pillars of freedom, as we call them here in the CEO Nation, getting your foundation set, building the right team, and then creating a operational management system to manage the team who runs the revenue is the way that you can start to have better expectations for your business. Because once you have that, you can start to understand deal flow. You can take revenue projections up and down. You can, once you know who, how, when to hire, you can hire more efficiently, and you're less scared, right, to bring the wrong person on because you've been through it and you've learned it. And so just keep all that in perspective, guys. It's not about you guys making some quick, this thing today wasn't about giving you some mental shift and you're like, oh, it all makes sense now. I'm just trying to give you some perspective around expectations and why we have them with HABE, and then how to affect that with the BDO have, right? And then the reality is, why are we even doing, why are our expectations, why do we even have those? Why are we doing this business? What's this whole thing about? So okay. Got you, Marvin. He said, thanks. All right, cool. I think I hit everybody there. One last time, if you guys didn't get that link, it's the CEO Nation, the CEONation.com/links, LINKS. Actually, just type it in. Bobby, I don't know if you're with me still. The CEO Nation. He beat me to it. Yep. And there's Bobby's email. If you guys haven't met Bobby, he helps with strategy sessions and some of the marketing things and different things we do. He's becoming a valuable part of our team with Team Architects and the CEO Nation and Redevelop Indy, the wholesaling part of our real estate companies. In fact, he helps with our Handle at Home Buyers, our acquisition company as well. So Bobby's a great resource for you guys at support at the CEO Nation. And then I think that's it. The replay of this, if you guys want to check it out, or any of the past ones you've missed, we've been doing this for several months. It's every Monday. I'll be here in the Facebook group. The replays are always there. Hit me up anytime, guys. Let us know what you need. Would love to help. It's been good to see everybody. Take care. See you guys next week.